In the last episode of Radio KD8TTE, we looked at Groundhog Day 22 No Notice Exercise and discussed the topic of emergency net activation. You want to make sure you see that video as background. In this episode, we're going to read the activation notice, we're going to look at it from the perspective of a net operator, and we're going to recap with advice on how to write a good activation notice for your emergency net. Stick around.
Black Swan, Black Swan.
A radio net is a network of radio stations. It uses a common channel for communication, a common time, and a common procedure. Without stations, there cannot be a net. Station operators need to know the common parts of the net operation. Nets often have published schedules, and they have published frequencies and modes of operation as well. Some of them also have status reports that are published, for example, on the web. The Black Swan net, formerly the Buckeye Net Mixed, uses several devices of interest. One is Signal Operating Instructions, an SOI. It defines the communication circuits and the modes of operation. We also use an activation notice. This will define any particular operation, including our regular schedule, but we will look at the activation notice in detail to see what else we can do with it. In a typical weekly Aries races or Oxcom net, mostly it's about reporting into the net. It's checking the equipment and signal.
This net meets each Wednesday evening at 8 p.m. local time on this frequency with a backup repeater frequency of 444.275 megahertz.
In typical daily National Traffic System traffic handling, that is message passing circuits, there will be reporting into the net, checking equipment and signal of course, but also the relay of some messages on behalf of third parties.
Backup number 1, routine, Hotel X-Ray Alpha, Whiskey 4 Kilo Echo Kilo 5.
Special sessions or operations go beyond what is regular day-to-day. It can be for a particular event, for example, an Aries team that is working as the communications portion for the management of a marathon. It could be at the behest of an agency. For example, Aries working in support of a sheriff looking for eyes and ears along various points throughout the county after a tornado has blown through or something along those lines. It could be part of another program's operation. For example, the Community Emergency Response Team, CERT, could be engaged in a damage assessment or a flood fight operation, and they need communications that is supplied by amateur radio operators. Now, these events typically have more planning and training because there's more of a mission. Marathons and sporting events of any type are often planned many months in advance. CERT and other agency operations don't have that luxury, but they do work from a playbook. So the play, the general structure of the operation, has already been figured out ahead of time, and hopefully people have been trained to work that play. When the play is called, the team is able to execute and need only the critical details for the specific situation to be able to do the right thing. Now that brings us to our example. Groundhog Day 22, the operation of the Black Swan net. The situation that we had is severe weather, a big winter storm that was bringing an elevated risk of power and communication outage with it. The mission was to relay alerts from the National Weather Service forecast offices to target areas in Ohio. Execution is to operate the Black Swan net and to relay and deliver messages as directed. We would do all the usual stuff, operation on 5 megahertz during the day, 3.5 megahertz at night. We were using the FL-AMP software for digital relay of messages, and we were delivering all of those alerts to a WinLink station called Black Swan to be able to measure our round trip time. Administration was simple. Keep your own station logs and keep them properly. And then control of the operation, that's going to be whoever is directing this activity. In this case, I'm the one that was driving it. So you see how quickly I just laid out what we're doing? We didn't have to go into a lot of details, but I was, in 5 quick points, able to make sure that everybody would see generally what we were doing. Now, with respect to details, you might need that. If somebody's not regular on the net, for example, or somebody needs to be briefed about what is the entire structure of what's happening, we have a way to do that. So we can look at the activation notice that is already in operation to see some detail. So check the link below. It's the same as last week, and you're going to see an activation notice that is for our regular operation, as well as activation notices specific to the Groundhog Day 22 operation. So let's start with the activation notice that is specific to this operation. We can see activation notice Groundhog Day 22-1. It says up at the top that it supplements activation notice 2. So this tells us that there is something else out there that's going to be needed to complete the picture of everything that's happening, but this particular document should get us going. So if we look at the notice, paragraph Roman numeral 1, situation, our first subparagraph is F. That tells us that A through E are defined elsewhere, and since we've already been told that we're supplementing activation notice 2, we've got a pretty good idea of where A through E are defined. So here we have paragraph 1F is defined. It's a layer on top of what's already there.
1. Situation. F. Multi-day and faceted winter storm to impact the central, eastern, and southern U.S. 1. A large-scale and massive winter storm will impact the central, eastern, and southern U.S. over the next 2 to 3 days. Heavy snow is expected from the southern Rockies to northern New England, while heavy ice accretion is likely from Texas to Pennsylvania. Meanwhile, in the warm sector, heavy rain and flooding are possible in the south and severe thunderstorms near the central Gulf Coast region. Most of Ohio is covered by a winter storm warning, leaving Knox, Holmes, Stark, and Mahoning counties with a winter weather advisory.
On the next paragraph, Roman numeral 3, execution, our first subparagraph is D. Of course, that tells us that A through C are defined elsewhere, and what we see here is going to be what we need to deal with the unique situations spelled out in paragraph 1F. It's defined here in 3D.
3. Execution. D. Special Operations Schedule. The net operates in local time, Eastern Standard Time, and according to the published SOI. 1. Daytime, 1100 to 1759. Watch will be on 60 meters. 2. Nighttime, 1800 to 1059. Watch will be on 80 meters digital. 3. Any Black Swan net operator may call the net.
That's all there is to it. The regular operators already know just what to do from looking at the fragmentary notice, but they can put the entire picture together by attaching it to the activation notice that is already in effect for normal operations, the one that we're supplementing. So let's take a look at activation notice 2. We're not going to read the whole thing. We're just going to highlight a couple of details. First of all, we see that it is in effect from the 4th of July, 2021. So this is about 7 months earlier. So this is a standard base operation. It doesn't change a lot. Now, the regularity that we have in our 3 times weekly normal operations, as well as this common base for any special operations, helps us to train people to a common set of tasks so that they're able to operate effectively. So let's go through this in more detail. Situation. What do we have in here? What's happening for our base operation? Well, we spell out here in the situation paragraph what the amateur radio service can do. We spell out what amateur radio organizations can do. We identify some agencies that want to work with volunteers individually rather than have radio-based NGOs performing that work for them. And then we spell out the justification for Black Swan Net specifically. It's a place to train. It highlights some of the accomplishments that we have achieved, and it creates a baseline for expectations. So here is where we have defined paragraphs 1A through E. They're spelled out. So when we go to the specific Groundhog Day 22 activation notice, we can just plug in paragraph F and it completes all of paragraph 1. It gives us the entire situation that we need to know about for the purpose of this operation, whether we have experience with this net or not. The mission. That's the question of what we're going to do. We are going to provide reliable communication for agencies and NGOs serving the public. This is not to serve the public directly. No, there's nothing wrong with that. It's a valuable service and it needs to be done. And that's what we can have very easily taken care of by other operators. And this net is happy to serve that traffic, but we are not there for the public directly. NGOs serving the public, sure. Agencies serving the public, sure. We've just defined what it is that we're going to be doing. We're not saying that the other stuff is not valuable. We're happy to help those who are helping the public. Now, when we look at our capabilities, it's pretty advanced. We're talking about reliable operation throughout Ohio, the handling of arbitrary format messages, the operation in whatever conditions we happen to face, interoperation with government radio stations, and quality of service. We're talking error-free and on time. Moving on to paragraph 3, we have the execution, how we are going to go about achieving that mission given the situation we find ourselves in. So we're going to define that this net is for emergency operations. We define channel names, modes, and so on in the SOI, the signal operating instructions, and we refer to that document separately. We define how the net is controlled. It's ACP, the Allied Communications Publication 125, specifies voice procedure, and ACP 131 specifies procedure for radio telegraph, that is, digital or even CW emissions. We also will include input from the ARRL and RRI specifications as appropriate to whatever task is before us. We prefer digital relay, but we will take voice. We'll fall back to that if necessary, and we spell that out here. We're going to be using NBEMS, the Narrowband Emergency Messaging Software. That includes FL-Digi, FL-AMP, and FL-Message. So this is going to help others to understand what tools they need to work with us. We also have coordinating instructions, how to work with us for training as well as for operations. We publish a regular schedule, and notice paragraph D, special operations, none. So we'll come back to that. Administration. Paragraph 4 is the adult supervision paragraph. It's going to spell out that we're going to maintain a roster of stations and the agencies that they represent. We're going to have reports of activity. We're going to remind amateur stations that this is reportable activity to the ARRL for the purpose of the Public Service Honor Roll and other reports that they issue for FCC and others to show how amateur radio is being used in service of the public. We also spell out the legal structure of the net. This is an unincorporated association. There is no NGO here. We're not part of some other operation, and so we define that here just in case anybody has a question. Who are these people? Finally, paragraph 5. That's control of the net operation. Who's in charge? How do we contact the person? Now, in military orders, paragraph 5 is typically command and signal. But as long as this is an unincorporated association, we just call it control. That helps us also to avoid having any confusion about the control of the net's operation with the command of an incident or the command of any other kind of government operation. So, that's the entirety of the 5-paragraph order, the activation notice that we're using. Now, for your own net, consider, is this structure good for you? It is nice and concise. It really is able to get a lot of information into a very small number of pages, and that can be extremely helpful. Simplicity is good because you need people to be able to refer to something that they can easily navigate and to be able to read something and understand it without having to flip through 50 pages of procedures and so on. you might find that there's something similar that you want to do for your net. You can use the black swan structure exactly, just take it and use it, change it to your own name if you want. That's no problem. We don't have any problem with people doing that. What matters is that it's something that fits your need and that is going to be useful for you to make your net more viable. Is there something else that you need? Well, before you add a sixth paragraph, you might want to take a look at what else you need to add. It probably belongs as a subparagraph to one of the five. This structure is not a brand new one. It's not something that people haven't thought through. It's been in place for a long time, and it has evolved, and it manages to maintain its relevance to a wide variety of situations. So probably the 5 paragraphs are going to be the right thing. If you've got extra stuff, it probably goes into a subparagraph. All right. So remember when we said we'd come back to a couple of paragraphs? Well, if we take a look at that fragmentary activation notice again, Groundhog Day 22, it has paragraph 1F. Now, there is no 1F in this base notice, the activation notice 2. So 1F just plugs right in. And that's how our situation paragraph becomes complete for the purpose of Groundhog Day 22. The Groundhog Day 22 notice has a paragraph 3D. The base notice also has a paragraph 3D, and what that means is that this specific operation is going to supersede the existing paragraph 3D. Thus, Special Operations Schedule None becomes a Special Operations Schedule with the details spelled out. So, what if some things change along the way? It's no problem. You can just do another fragment. We did that, in fact, to end the operation. When it became evident that the issue, the situation had passed, and the need for the circuit was now starting to decrease, we were able to issue a second activation notice specific to Groundhog Day 22 that provided new information. Let's take a look at it. We can see it supersedes Groundhog Day 22-1. It replaces 22-1. It still supplements Activation Notice 2, so you can take this and put it together with Activation Notice 2 to get the complete picture. But paragraph 1F has the current situation, the new situation. Paragraph 3D is new, and it states when the activation will expire. When it expires, the paragraphs here, 1F and paragraph 3D, will disappear, leaving only the activation notice 2, exactly what it was before the special operation began. And that's it for the activation notice. So come back next week for part 3 in this series. We're going to talk about transmission of the activation notice, the reason why we use these fragments rather than sending the entire package all at once. We're also going to look at the use of watch, and we're going to see how we did for Groundhog Day 22. Until then, ask questions if you've got them. Share this if you found it to be helpful. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss anything. Till I see you again, this is Radio KD8TTE out.